The text message flashed on my screen, slicing through the quiet of my bunk at 3 a.m. 7 months into my deployment, and it was from Sarah. I have the best news. I'm pregnant. A baby emoji, then a heart. I just stared at it, frozen. My roommate, David, snored loudly across from me, completely oblivious. My mind was racing. 7 months. 7 months straight I'd been here, deep in the middle of nowhere, doing the kind of work that absolutely doesn't let you take breaks. Not a single visit home, not even a weekend pass. Nothing. But that wasn't even the real problem. The real problem, the actual, undeniable truth, was that I'd been medically infertile since I was 19 years old. Completely, documentably zero chance. I had the paperwork, the test results, the doctor's notes from 3 different specialists, all confirming it. And Sarah knew. I made sure of it. I remember that conversation like it was yesterday. It was our second date, at a cozy Italian bistro in downtown Phoenix. I figured if things were going to get serious, she needed to know up front. So I pulled out the medical documents right there at the table and showed her. She said she understood. Said kids weren't a deal breaker. Said we could always adopt if we wanted. She seemed so understanding, so mature about it. That was 3 years ago. We got married 18 months later. And now, here I was, staring at a text message that made absolutely no sense. Not unless you considered the one explanation I desperately didn't want to consider. I didn't reply right away. I just sat there in the dark. And something strange happened. I didn't cry. I didn't lash out or punch anything. Instead, this cold, clear certainty just settled over me. My hands were steady when I opened my laptop and pulled up our phone plan account. I had access to everything, all our accounts, because I was the one paying the bills from overseas. The phone records loaded, painfully slow, on the base Wi-Fi. And there it was. Months and months of calls to one specific number. Late-night calls. Calls that lasted for hours. Calls at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., times when she thought I'd be asleep or busy. The pattern was so obvious, it almost looked deliberate. I scrolled back further. It started about 4 months into my deployment. Right around the time our video calls got shorter. Right around the time she stopped answering when I called at our usual times. Right around the time she started saying she was tired or busy or her phone was dying. I took screenshots of everything. Then I opened our bank account. We had a joint account where my military pay went, and she had a card for household expenses. I went through every transaction from the past 7 months. There were charges I didn't recognize. A hotel outside of Sedona. Expensive dinners at places we'd never been together. A weekend trip to a resort town near Lake Havasu. Hundreds of dollars at stores that made no sense. She'd been spending my deployment money like it was nothing. Money I was earning by sleeping on a cot in 110-degree heat and eating food that tasted like cardboard. Money that was supposed to be for our future, for the house we talked about, for the life we were supposed to build. I went back through our text messages. Every time I asked about her day, there were gaps. Every time I asked who she was hanging out with, the answers were vague. But one name kept appearing, Noah. Noah and I grabbed coffee today. Noah helped me move that furniture. Noah says I should try this new workout place. I just figured Noah was a girlfriend. Never occurred to me to ask. Why would it? Then I checked her social media. The accounts I could still access. She'd been careful, but not careful enough. There were tagged photos, at restaurants, birthday parties, group shots. And the same guy kept appearing next to her. Tall, slim, man bun, hipster beard. The whole aesthetic. In one photo, his arm was around her waist. In another, they were standing way too close. The comments from her friends were telling too, little inside jokes, heart emojis. One friend even wrote, "You two are so cute together," before it got deleted. I sat there until sunrise, just collecting information. Not emotional yet, not angry. Just methodical. By the time morning came, I had a folder on my laptop with everything organized by date. Phone records, bank statements, screenshots, receipts. All of it. Then I replied to her text. Just one sentence, "I have news, too. I'm infertile. Have been since I was 19. I watched the little red receipt appear. She'd seen it. Then nothing. 1 hour. 2 hours. 3 hours. My entire duty shift went by, and she didn't respond. By hour 6, I knew she was panicking, trying to figure out what to say. Probably calling whoever Noah was, maybe even her mom, Carol. The silence told me everything I needed to know. An innocent person would have called immediately, confused, worried, asking what I meant. A guilty person would go quiet while they crafted the perfect lie. When she finally messaged back, it was just, "Can we talk? Please call me." But I was done talking. I wanted to see what else I could find first. I went to the PX and bought an international calling card. Then I called our apartment landlord, Mr. Henderson, from a private line. Asked him casually if everything was okay with our apartment in Mesa, if he'd seen Sarah around. He mentioned he'd noticed a car parked overnight a few times, different from ours. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't a problem. I told him, "No problem at all. Thanks for mentioning it." Click. Another piece of the puzzle. I called our internet provider next. Asked for the login history on our home network. Took some explaining, but eventually, they sent me a list. 2 devices connected regularly. Mine and hers. But wait, mine was with me overseas. The laptop I'd left at home hadn't been turned on in months, according to the timestamps. So, whose device was logging in as mine? Someone was in my apartment, using my stuff, probably sitting on my couch, maybe even sleeping in my bed. The rage started to build then, a slow burn. But I kept it controlled. I'd been trained to operate under pressure, to think clearly when everything was chaos. This was just another mission. Another problem that needed a systematic solution. I started keeping a journal, writing down every detail, every timestamp, every dollar amount. Staff Sergeant Miller noticed I was distracted and pulled me aside. Asked if everything was okay back home. I told him I might need emergency leave soon for a family situation. He said to let him know and he'd expedite the paperwork. Good guy. That night, I finally called her. She answered on the first ring, voice all shaky and tearful, immediately launching into this story about miracles and how doctors can be wrong. How she'd read stories online about men who were told they were infertile but then had biological children anyway. She kept saying, "It's your baby. It has to be. I haven't been with anyone else." Over and over, like a script she'd memorized. I let her talk herself out. Then I asked one simple question, "What's Noah's last name?" The silence on the other end was deafening. You could hear her breathing stop. That's when I knew for absolute certain. Not suspected, not worried, but knew. My wife, Sarah, the woman I'd married, the woman I'd trusted with everything, had been cheating on me while I was serving my country overseas. She'd gotten pregnant by another man and had actually thought she could pass it off as mine. The betrayal was so complete that it almost felt unreal, like I was watching it happen to someone else. She started crying then. Real crying, not the fake stuff from before. Started saying my name over and over. Started saying please. Started saying she could explain, but there was nothing to explain. The math was simple. I'd been gone 7 months. She was pregnant. I was infertile. Everything else was just noise. I told her I'd be in touch through Attorney Davies and hung up. Then I blocked her number. Blocked her on every platform. Blocked her family. Just cut it all off in one clean motion. David came back to the bunk and found me sitting there in the dark. Asked if I was okay. I told him my marriage was over. He offered to buy me a beer when we got off duty. Sometimes, that's all you can do. Just sit with someone while their world falls apart. I had 4 months left on my deployment. For months to plan exactly how this was going to end, because this wasn't just about a divorce anymore. This was about making sure everyone knew exactly what happened. Making sure she couldn't spin this into some story where I was the bad guy who abandoned her. Making sure the truth came out completely and undeniably. I wasn't going to let her play victim when she was the one who destroyed everything. After I blocked her, she started calling from other numbers. Her mom Carol's phone, her sister Emily's phone, unknown numbers that had to be friends. I ignored all of them. For 3 days straight, my phone lit up constantly, and I just watched it happen like I was observing some kind of experiment. Then the emails started. Long, desperate emails about how she made a mistake, how she was confused, how the pregnancy hormones were making her crazy, how Noah meant nothing. That name, Noah. She finally admitted it existed, but tried to minimize it, like he was just some random mistake. But I had the phone records. I had months of evidence. This wasn't a mistake. This was a whole separate relationship. On day 4, she tried a different approach. Sent me an email with a screenshot from some fertility forum about men who were diagnosed infertile but later had biological kids. Sent me links to medical articles about misdiagnosis rates. Sent me a whole paragraph about miracles and faith and how we should get a paternity test after the baby was born to be sure. She actually thought I was stupid enough to wait 9 months in uncertainty. She actually thought I'd just sit there wondering if maybe, possibly, by some cosmic chance, the baby was mine. That's when I realized she wasn't just a cheater. She was a manipulator who'd probably been planning this whole story from the moment she saw the positive test. I went to Captain Rodriguez and requested emergency leave. Told him I had a family crisis that required immediate attention. He looked at me for a long moment, and I think he knew something was seriously wrong because he approved it within 2 hours. Turns out, Sarah had been sending Facebook messages to other military wives in our unit's family group, painting herself as the abandoned pregnant wife whose husband wouldn't even come home. She was building her narrative. Captain Rodriguez had seen it. He knew something was off. The paperwork went through fast, and I had a flight home booked by that evening. Here's the thing, though. I'd been keeping track of time. She'd sent me that pregnancy text when she was probably around 2 months along. It had been 3 weeks since then. That put her at about 10 or 11 weeks pregnant. Baby showers usually happen around 7 months. I had time. Time to let her think she'd gotten away with it. Time to let her plan that shower and invite everyone and build up this whole fantasy. Time to let her dig the hole deeper. So, I didn't tell anyone I was coming home. Not her family, nobody. I just quietly started preparing. First stop back in the States was Attorney Davies' office. I'd already emailed him everything, but he wanted to see the physical documents. My medical records proving infertility, 3 separate test results from 3 separate doctors, all saying the same thing: 0 sperm count, permanent, irreversible. He made copies of everything, organized it into a folder, and told me this was the most open and shut case he'd ever seen. Military divorces can drag on forever, he said. But this one would be fast, maybe 5 or 6 months total. Then I went to the bank, pulled all our joint account statements for the past year, had them printed, and highlighted every suspicious charge. The hotels, the restaurants, the weekend getaway, the unexplained cash withdrawals, thousands of dollars of my deployment pay spent on her affair. Attorney Davies said that would matter in the settlement. Said judges don't look kindly on spouses who drain accounts while their partner is serving overseas. I drove past our apartment, but I didn't stop. Didn't want her to know I was in town yet. Instead, I checked into a hotel and just waited. Checked her social media every day. Watched her post updates about the pregnancy. Watched her friends comment with congratulations. Watched her mom, Carol, share posts about becoming a grandmother. They were all so happy, so excited, and none of them knew the truth. About 4 months went by. I flew back to the Air Force Base, finished my deployment, got all my affairs in order. The day I officially completed my tour, I checked her Instagram. There it was. The baby shower announcement. Pink and blue theme. Her parents' house. 2 weeks away. She was 7 months pregnant now. Her photos showed her in maternity clothes, hand on her belly, smiling like everything was perfect. The comments were full of people saying they couldn't wait to meet the baby, asking if I'd be able to make it home for the shower, hoping I'd get leave. She responded to one, saying, "He's trying his best, but the military makes it so hard." With a sad emoji. Still playing the victim. Still lying. I called her mom, Carol, from a number she wouldn't recognize. Told her I'd just gotten back stateside and wanted to surprise everyone at the shower. Could she please keep it a secret? Carol was thrilled. Said it would mean the world to Sarah. Said they'd been so worried about me missing everything. I felt bad lying to them, but they needed to hear the truth in person, with evidence, not through Sarah's filtered version of events. The day of the shower, I put on my dress uniform. Every ribbon, every badge, everything perfectly in place. If I was going to do this, I was going to remind everyone exactly who I was and what I'd been doing while my wife was destroying our marriage. I arrived at Frank and Carol's house exactly 30 minutes after the shower started. Cars lined the street. I could hear music and laughter from inside. Pink and blue balloons everywhere. A banner that said "Baby," my last name, on it. That hurt more than I expected. I stood on that porch for a solid minute, just breathing. Then I knocked. Carol answered, and her face just lit up. She hugged me so tight and whispered, "She's going to be so happy," and pulled me inside before I could say anything. The living room was packed. Her aunts, her cousins, Nana Rose, family, friends, maybe 30 people total. Everyone turned to look when I walked in. Someone gasped. Someone else said, "Oh my God, he made it." And there was this ripple of excitement through the room. Then Sarah came around the corner from the kitchen, carrying a plate of cookies. She saw me and froze. The plate slipped from her hands and shattered on the hardwood floor. Cookies and ceramic everywhere. Everyone rushed to help, but I just stood there, looking at her. 7 months pregnant. Undeniably pregnant with a baby that wasn't mine. She knew in that moment exactly why I was there. Her face went completely white. Carol started talking about surprises and how wonderful this was, but I interrupted. My voice was calm, steady, the same voice I used when briefing my unit. I said I had something important to share with everyone before we continued the celebration. The room went quiet instantly. You could feel the mood shift. Her dad, Frank, asked if everything was okay. I pulled the folder from under my arm. Started with the medical documents. Held them up so everyone could see the hospital letterhead. Explained in clear terms that I'd been medically infertile since I was 19 years old. That I told my wife this before we even got engaged. That she'd known from the beginning I could never biologically father children. Carol looked confused. Frank's expression started to change. I continued. Said I'd been deployed for 7 months without coming home once. Said the math didn't work. Said there was no miracle, no misdiagnosis, no medical anomaly. Then I pulled out the phone records. Showed them months of calls to one number. Thousands of minutes, always late at night. Showed them the bank statements with the hotel charges and expensive dinners. Showed them photos I'd found of her with another man. I laid it all out on their coffee table like evidence at trial. The room was dead silent, except for someone crying quietly in the corner. Nana Rose stood up and walked out without a word. Frank sat down heavily on the couch, his face in his hands. Carol just kept shaking her head, saying, "No, no, no," over and over like she could make it not true. Sarah tried to speak. Tried to say something about how it wasn't what it looked like, how I was ruining everything, how could I do this here? But her voice cracked and failed, because there was nothing she could say. The evidence was right there. Her sister, Emily, asked who Noah was. I told them. Told them he was a barista at the coffee shop in the Arts District. Told them he was 23 years old. Told them my wife had been spending my military pay on him while I was sleeping in the desert. One of her aunts started gathering her things to leave. Then another. Then another. Within 5 minutes, half the room had cleared out. The ones who stayed were just staring at Sarah like they didn't recognize her. Her best friend, Jessica, the one who was supposed to be throwing the shower with Carol, looked at her and said, "How could you do this to him?" and walked out. That was it. The room emptied. Frank stood up and told her to get out of his house. Just like that. Get out. Carol was crying too hard to speak. I looked at Sarah one last time. 7 months pregnant, tears running down her face, her whole world collapsing. I told her attorney Davies would be in touch about the divorce. Told her she could keep whatever she wanted from our apartment because I didn't want any of it anymore. Then I said the thing I'd been saving, I gave you everything. My trust, my money, my future. You chose a 23-year-old barista making $12 an hour. Hope it was worth it. Then I turned and walked out. I could hear her sobbing behind me. Hear Frank's voice raised in anger. Hear Carol asking how she could do this. But I didn't look back. I got in my rental car and drove away from that house, from that neighborhood, from that entire life. My phone started ringing within minutes. Emily called, Carol called, even Frank called. I answered that one. He apologized. Said he had no idea. Said if he'd known, he would have stopped the whole thing months ago. Said I was welcome in their home any time and Sarah wasn't. Said he was ashamed of what his daughter had become. That meant something. I told him I appreciated it and that I was sorry for ruining the shower. He said, "You didn't ruin anything." She did. Then he said something I'll never forget, "You're a good man, and you deserved better than this. Don't let what she did change who you are." We talked for a few more minutes and hung up. I sat in a grocery store parking lot in Flagstaff for probably an hour, just breathing. It was done. The truth was out. No more secrets, no more lies. Everyone had seen the evidence with their own eyes. And there was no spinning that. The next few days, I just existed in this weird, calm state while my phone told me the story of Sarah's life falling apart in real time. Emily texted me updates, even though I never asked for them. Said the family had an emergency meeting after I left, and everyone agreed Sarah needed to leave their parents' house immediately. Apparently, she'd been staying there for the past 2 months because our apartment reminded her of her lies, or maybe because Noah's place wasn't nice enough for her. Frank gave her 2 days to pack her stuff and get out. Carol, who'd spent thousands on baby shower decorations and gifts, packed everything into boxes and told her to take it all. Nana Rose, the sweet old lady who'd always treated me like her own grandson, told her she was a disgrace to the family. Those were her exact words, according to Emily. A disgrace. That's how completely she'd burned every bridge. Her friends started disappearing, too. The ones who'd been commenting heart emojis on her photos suddenly went silent. Maria, her maid of honor from our wedding, blocked her on everything. Chloe, her college roommate, posted something about loyalty and truth that was clearly aimed at her. The small-town social circle she'd built her whole life around just evaporated. Turns out, people really don't like it when you cheat on a deployed soldier. Turns out that's pretty much universally considered one of the worst things you can do. Then came the Noah situation. Emily told me this part because she thought I deserved to know how it all played out. Sarah went to him the day after the shower, probably expecting comfort or support or some kind of plan for their future together. He took one look at the situation, at the angry family and the public humiliation and the reality of an actual baby coming in 2 months, and he completely panicked. Broke up with her right there. Told her he wasn't ready to be a dad. Told her this had all moved too fast. Blocked her number that same day. Stopped showing up to his job at the coffee shop. His roommate told someone, who told someone else, that he'd moved back in with his parents in Prescott, 3 hours away. 23 years old, man bun, talking about philosophy and art over expensive lattes. But when real adult consequences showed up, he disappeared. Sarah tried to hit him with a paternity claim, but apparently his family had money. They lawyered up immediately, filed paperwork demanding a DNA test, and made it clear they'd fight for absolute minimum support if he was proven to be the father. So, she went from having a husband with steady military income and full benefits to having a runaway barista who wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. The downgrade was almost poetic. She tried to come back to our apartment once. I wasn't living there anymore, but I was still on the lease. Mr. Henderson called me because she was at the door demanding to be let in, saying it was her home, too. I told him she could collect her personal belongings with someone supervising, but she couldn't stay there. I'd already paid out the rest of the lease and told him I'd have my stuff moved within the week. He understood. Said his brother got mistreated during a deployment and it destroyed him for years. Said he'd make sure she didn't cause problems. When she finally got inside with Emily supervising, she apparently had a breakdown seeing all the baby stuff still there, the crib box, the clothes, the books she'd bought with my money. All of it still set up like a nursery for a future that no longer existed. Emily packed it all up, and they left. I never asked what happened to any of it. Attorney Davies handled the divorce paperwork, and it moved faster than most military divorces. We had documentation for everything, and she didn't contest a single thing. She couldn't. What was she going to argue? That the baby was somehow mine, despite 3 medical opinions saying otherwise? That the affair didn't happen, despite months of phone records and receipts? That she deserved half our assets, despite draining our joint account on hotel rooms? Her lawyer probably told her to just sign everything and move on before it got even worse. The settlement was clean. I kept everything I brought into the marriage, plus compensation for the money she'd taken from our joint account. She got nothing except her personal items. No alimony because of the adultery and the short marriage duration. Attorney Davies said judges really don't like it when military spouses mistreat and steal during deployment. Said it shows a pattern of taking advantage of someone's service. The whole process took about 5 months from start to finish. 5 months, and a marriage was just legally erased. I got the final papers in the mail on a Tuesday morning. Signed them at my kitchen table. Felt nothing except relief that it was officially over. Emily kept updating me, even though I stopped responding. Said Sarah had moved into a small, run-down apartment in a less than ideal part of Tucson. Said she was working retail at a department store, trying to save money before the baby came. Said Noah never came back and was officially denying everything until the DNA test. Said her parents were helping with baby stuff because it was their grandchild, but the relationship with their daughter was permanently damaged. Nana Rose still refused to speak to her at all. At a family dinner, she'd said, "I didn't raise you to be this kind of woman," and walked out. That was months ago, and they still hadn't reconciled. Sarah had the baby about 2 months after our divorce was finalized, a boy. The DNA test confirmed Noah was the father. He was court-ordered to pay minimum child support but wanted 0 custody or involvement. So, she ended up exactly where her choices led her. Single mom, broke, socially isolated, raising a baby whose father wanted nothing to do with him. All because she couldn't stay faithful for 7 months while I was serving overseas. Meanwhile, I got promoted 6 months after everything went down. Captain Rodriguez put me up for a leadership position, and I took it. Threw myself into work. Started going to the gym regularly. Actually started talking to the base therapist instead of just showing up. Worked through the anger and the betrayal and the feeling that I'd been played for a fool. It took time, but eventually, I realized I'd actually dodged something worse. Better to find out who she really was after 2 years of marriage than after 10 years and an actual kid together. Better to find out before we bought that house. Before we built an even more complicated life. The betrayal hurt, but the timing could have been so much worse. I started seeing things clearly. Started recognizing red flags I'd missed. Started understanding that some people are just really good at pretending to be something they're not. And that's not on me. I did everything right. I was honest from day one. I trusted her because that's what marriage is supposed to be. I worked hard and sent money home and served my country. I didn't fail. She did. Frank and Carol sent me a Christmas card 8 months after everything happened. Signed by both of them. Said they still considered me family. Said they were sorry for what their daughter did. Said I deserved so much better and they hoped I was doing well. Included a photo of them at some family gathering. I kept that card. Put it in a box with all the divorce papers and evidence. A reminder that some people have integrity even when their own family doesn't. I never responded to any of Sarah's attempts to reach out after the divorce was final. She tried several times over that first year. Emails saying she was sorry. Messages through people we both knew, asking if we could talk. Once, she sent a long letter to my base address about regret and mistakes and how she wished she could go back and do everything differently. David asked if I wanted to read it. I told him to throw it away. There was nothing she could say that would change anything. Nothing that would make me want her back in my life in any capacity. Some doors stay closed once you shut them. And that's exactly how it should be. I'm doing good now. Better than good, actually. Got another promotion. Made some solid friends. Reconnected with my family who'd been supportive through everything. My parents told me they never really liked her anyway, but didn't want to say anything. Guess they saw something I didn't. I'm not bitter about it anymore. I'm just more careful now, more aware, less naive about people. I learned exactly what kind of person I refuse to become and exactly what kind of person I won't accept in my life. That's a valuable lesson, even if it cost me a marriage to learn it. Would I get married again? Maybe someday, but not anytime soon. Would I trust someone as easily as I trusted her? Definitely not. But that's probably healthy. Trust should be earned, not given away freely just because someone says the right things. Some people asked me if I regretted showing up at that baby shower the way I did. If I thought it was too harsh. Maybe it was. But she was going to lie to everyone and let them throw her a party celebrating a baby that proved she'd been unfaithful. She was going to let her family waste time and money and emotion on a lie. She was going to take my name and my reputation and drag them through the mud while playing the victim of the absent military husband. I wasn't going to let that happen. I wasn't going to let her control the story. So, I showed up with evidence and let the truth speak for itself. And I don't regret it, not even a little bit. She made her choices. I just made sure everyone knew what those choices were. That's not cruelty. That's just honesty. And sometimes honesty hurts worse than anything else. What would you have done in my shoes, knowing what you know now?